It's the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James. We're joined today by the Honorable Austin Scott. He represents the 8th Congressional District of Georgia, member of the House Ag Committee, and also of Armed Services. Great to see you.
Glad to be here, Tony. Thanks for having us.
We look back at things happening at home in the district. How would you describe it at this point?
So just like virtually everywhere else in America, our crops are starting to come in, and our prices are below the cost of production, and so obviously we're very concerned about the net impact on the farm. We've had a couple of tough years throughout the Southeast with Hurricane Michael and some other unforeseen instances that led to losses of capital. So we just like everybody else in the ag community are extremely concerned about the things we're seeing out there right now.
Programs like CFAP and now CFAP 2.0, is that going to help?
It will help, but these CFAP, MFP, none of these things are long-term solutions to the challenges in ag. I mean, the primary issue is that the cost of production is higher than what you can get for your commodity when you're going to sell it. And so if you don't have an interest in my area, it's a GIN or some type of co-op where you're able to get beyond the farm gate value of the product, then you're simply not profitable on the farm right now, and that's something we're going to have to address as we push forward with ag policy.
Is it safe to tie the situation we saw with the pandemic, where the squeezing of the supply chain, if you will, because lack of a number of participants, if you will, especially like in the livestock sector, can we look at that and draw possibly a conclusion to this consolidation on the input side for producers? You see where I'm going there.
Absolutely. I don't think it's just consolidation on the input side. I mean, I'm extremely concerned about the influence of China and especially China in the inputs through ChemChina, Syngenta seed. I mean, if we look at China, it's not just the interest that they own throughout the supply chain between the farm and the grocery store. They've got a tremendous amount of input in the supply chain going to the farm and the inputs. And so it's not just that China has interest in those seed companies and chemical companies, it's that the farmer doesn't have enough choices between suppliers. And so one of the key mistakes I think we've made in this country is the Federal Trade Commission allowing the consolidation of so many companies that it's taken competition out of the supply chain, not just from the farm to the consumer, but from the seed supplier and the chemical suppliers to the farm. And so this hasn't happened just in agriculture, it's been in other areas of our economy as well. But I'm extremely concerned about the consolidation. And I think that we need to go back, and the Federal Trade Commission needs to become much more aggressive in busting up what have effectively become monopolies.
One other thing that I think I've seen come across social media through your account was dealing with the census.
Absolutely.
And we're not talking about the ag census now. We're talking about the general census. Why is that so important?
Look, there are 435 members of the House of Representatives. And if you look at the trends across the country, the population shift has been to the metropolitan areas. So not only has the population shifted to the metropolitan areas, but the response rate from rural America for the census is lower than it is for metropolitan America. So those of us from rural America, we were already going to lose part of the 435 members to the metropolitan areas, but because our census count is lower than it is in the metropolitan areas, we may actually lose more members to the metro markets, if you will. And so of the 435 members of Congress, there aren't that many of us that actually represent rural America. And so the loss of one or two or three of them is probably going to happen simply because of the population shift to the metropolitan areas. But we don't need the one or two or three to become 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 simply because rural Americans haven't filled out the census. So if you're from rural America, the number one thing you can do for the ag economy and for your rural hospitals and for our small school systems is to fill out that census. make sure you filled it out, make sure your census filled it out, talk to people at your kids' schools, talk to people at your churches, whatever civic group you're a member of. We need everyone to be counted. We expect, as I said, to lose some members to the metropolitan areas, but we don't need to lose 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 members to the metropolitan areas.
Good point. Great to see you.
Glad to see you too. Thanks so much.